here in the capital of Krista McAuliffe, and that day, I remember vividly. I remember Amanda Ober, WMUR TV, and the crews out there when everyone was watching, and it just happened. I think 73 seconds in, first teacher in space. And our poll question up on X this morning. By the way, good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Right up into Portland now. We have extra signal strength, 98.7 FM HD2. And of course, our regular stations, 98.3 FM, 1270 AM, and 107.3 FM Lakes region. We have a couple of FMs now in the Lakes region, of course. And we also have 98.3 FM HD2 Lakes region, 107.7 FM. But everywhere else worldwide, hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. And our poll question up on X this morning on a chilly Wednesday morning. Still some slipping and sliding going on out there, J-Dog. It's hard to believe. I'll come back to that. But it has to do with the space shuttle tragedy and accident, and everyone watching as that unfolded. It was remarkable and sad. And Krista McAuliffe, does her legacy still live on in a vibrant way? And I would say yes, not only here in New Hampshire and in the capital, but J-Dog, I heard the number of schools that were subsequently named after her around the country. I think it's up to 40 as the first teacher in space. Yeah, so there you go. We'll keep it on that. J-Dog, I don't want to get in this before we get into a lot of stuff. We have a packed show for you, so buckle up. J-Dog, the National Football League's about one thing and one thing only. You and I know that. It's about winning. That's why they're paying Harbaugh $20 million at the Giants. That's why Vrabel's in New England again. It's about winning and winning Super Bowls. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And this snub of Bill Belichick into the hall, J-Dog, you may not agree. I think it's one of the most embarrassing, despicable things I've ever seen. Think of what you want about Belichick. 8 total Super Bowls in his career. It's not even a question. So those morons, those 50 petty, hate-monger morons who vote, not even getting 40, it's an absolute joke. But that's, how I feel, J-Dog, on the NFL story this morning on Belichick not getting into the hall on the first ballot. What a joke. NFL's about one thing. And by the way, J-Dog, Roger Goodell, talk about a well-paid, I know the ratings and the money. When the Patriots beat Denver, in Denver this past weekend, Goodell probably fell out of his recliner because the last thing he wanted is the Patriots back in a Super Bowl. He was hoping it would be a Denver, Seattle, or LA Super Bowl. Mark my words. Some commentary. All right, just on the Mother Nature front, Route 4 this morning, more slipping and sliding and blue lights out there, and here we are a few days after Sunday and Monday. And some of these, when you go in to get gas or a supermarket or a stop, these I saw 2 people come in. Roads are better, but you go in and that greasy, the mucky stuff is with the cold mornings. I saw a car slide almost into where the Dunkin' Donuts was. That would have been an awkward, hey, I've got a coffee. I'm sorry, I'm in your lobby. But we have a lot going on this morning. More, questions, an evolving picture out of Minneapolis. That's a moving picture. We're going to hear from our own White House correspondent, John Decker, in a little bit. And also a lot happening at the State House, including one representative, we'll talk more about this later, who proposed, I think a state Republican, a $50 tax on a bicycle as well as an e-bike, and now he's pulling back on that, saying maybe not a good idea, so no pun intended. I guess they're putting the brakes on that. Even questions about the U.S. dollar. We're going to hear from Doug Tengden in a little bit. Before I bring in our in-studio guest, we have a packed show for you, so buckle up. We're going to talk more about the affordable housing crisis in New Hampshire, the lack of available stuff, how some people in these towns and cities, not in my backyard, and they say we need more affordable housing, need to reduce the acreage requirements of some of these places so you can put affordable homes if you want younger people to stay here. We're going to hear from John Stebbins, Procon Construction, and their firm that really focuses on affordable housing, including in Somersworth, where they're on to phase 2 because the demand was so high for affordable apartments and housing. John Stebbins in the 10 o'clock hour. Also, this morning, we'll get a report from Rory O'Neill, 24/7 News national correspondent. A lot of you traveling, hopefully the air stuff is beginning to unwrinkle. It was still a complete mess yesterday because of all the cancellations. And believe it or not, there's even talk of potentially towards the back half of this weekend, and let's hope it's not true, a nor'easter. It's a real winter, folks. Also, J-Dog, you didn't comment, by the way, I noticed, and I don't want to I don't want to get you going, but I noticed you didn't notice at all, or you didn't comment when I mentioned the Belichick NFL snub. I just want your 20 seconds on that before we move into our next guest.
I don't think much of it. Okay, he's not. All right, wasn't it?
But what do you think? Right? What was going on there? Come on, what do you think was going on? Why didn't he get 40
his own
votes?
Worst enemy.
You think that's what, just personal? People don't like
absolutely.
him? Video gate, whatever.
Spygate, Deflategate. He's not getting an NFL head coaching gig ever again. So he's at UNC. Now he's stuck at UNC for better or for worse. And now, of course, I think his girlfriend has something to do with this also.
Really?
Not being able to get into the
Hall that's magnanimous of those people.
Well, they don't like her. They don't like him. So.
I guess you said it. All right. Hey, listen, we're going to have some fun in the first segment before we get back to some of the heavy duty stuff. We're going to have all our regular contributors, the latest on the debate over yesterday. We had Chris Pappas out of the gate. He's running for the U.S. Senate, Democrat, member of our first congressional member of Congress, talking about the debate over Homeland Security spending, which is ICE spending because they oversee ICE and Border Patrol. And should that be changed or some policies? Would it lead to a government shutdown? We're going to have more on that and a whole lot more. But we have Andrew from Colette Travel in our studios. Want to tee up our next segment, and he's nice enough to come in this morning to the Capitol. He's got some great clients up here. But Andrew Layton with Colette Travel, and of course our trip October 25th, going to Great Britain, British Isles, Wales, Scotland. Andrew's great to work with, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but Colette Travel, family owned and operated, 100 years in business out of Rhode Island, right here in New England.
Good morning, Jack. Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm really excited to be here and partnering with you and the Pulse of NH on another exciting opportunity to go over to Great Britain. And yeah, Colette, we've been around a long time. We're on our 108th year of touring at this point, and we go to every continent. And it's amazing. We're still family owned out of Rhode Island, and it feels that way when we meet with one another.
So I know October. It feels like it's a little bit out there, and it is. We're still. Hey, look at the bright side. The days are getting longer. Someone told me the other day in 4 days it's going to be light at 5 o'clock. We're getting there. So as Mike Pop said this morning on the Morning Information Center, if you want to start counting down till spring, go ahead. It's even cold in Florida. But October may be a ways away, but people plan for these things. A trip like this, you plan. And before we go to a break, maybe just let's tell the folks where we're going this trip, October 25th. And then we'll come back and talk about how they can learn more and how they easily can learn more. But tell us where we're going.
Yeah, so we're going to start off by flying over to the capital of Scotland. We're going to spend some time in Edinburgh. Very exciting city. Think bagpipes and looming castles. And then we take a train over the Borders region and into York. So we're going to have some time in the interior part of England. We'll cross over towards Wales, spending some time in Chester and Convie, and then some time in Stratford upon Avon, where you get your Shakespeare history.
Can I get it like an afternoon cocktail or tea in a real castle?
Oh yeah, I mean you've got opportunities to have tea every turn of the
thinking maybe
day, and
colder
maybe
a pint.
Yeah. Every evening we can explore pub culture with one another, and then we wind up in London, which I mean, an amazing world within a city type of capital, and great food, amazing architecture. The history speaks for itself.
You know, one of my kids, no longer a kid, but she and her husband about a year ago went to Scotland, Edinburgh, and they just went alone. It was one of their, first anniversaries. They, have a kid, and they loved it. And you know what she and he were saying, because they each love different things, but they love the food. And I never would have thought that's the first thing that they would have said, but they loved the food in Scotland. It was healthy, it was fun, but they loved it. They said it was really good. And they said sometimes when you travel, the last thing you want to worry about is, how do I feel? And is the food good? You want to be busy and sightseeing, and they love the food. They also loved not the architecture, but the actual city and streets and side streets and shops and residences. They just loved Edinburgh. They loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a captivating place. And yeah, a lot of people characterize British food as being boring and bland. But I mean, when you lead with mushy peas, I understand how you get there. But the fish and chips, and I just find the style there to be simple, and that's not a bad thing. But it's incredible. But then in the cities, you think about London, and I mentioned World Within a City. There's so many cultures represented there, and because of that, there's amazing food from all corners of the world, and you get to
Yeah.
explore that.
All right, we're going to take a break. Come back with Andrew. We'll talk about how you can learn more because this trip is already starting to fill up, and he was nice enough to come in. So we're taking our mind off some of the political talk, but we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. There's no shortage of stuff happening. In fact, we're seeing even in Maine last night, Governor Mills giving her final state of the state. I'm really sorry I missed that, Governor. I happened to be watching the Bruins beat the Predators in overtime. It was pretty exciting. I didn't want to hear about all the taxes and the spending you've done up there, but even the some of the debate over ICE operations in Maine continues. Even Senator Susan Collins, Republican in Maine, this morning saying that she thinks they should put a hiatus on the operation in Maine until they focus and calling for more discrete operations. It was interesting with Chris Pappas yesterday running for the U.S. Senate, albeit member of Congress, Chris Pappas, highly critical of Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, yesterday morning on my 12 or 15-minute interview with Representative Pappas. But when I asked him point blank, do you still support the mission of federal immigration enforcement? In other words, ICE, he said yes, that people who are here illegally, that are criminals and convicted, need to be, apprehended. But the question is, there's a lot of question at the top in terms of yesterday. You saw Kristi Noem had been down in the White House. The president for now seems to be standing by his HS secretary, but making changes on the ground in Minneapolis. We'll come back to that and more, and we'll tell you how you can easily learn more with Andrew here from Colette Travel. Questions. I think he's going to talk to you a little bit about a phone number and how you can easily just make reservations and learn more. And I think we're going to announce this more live here this spring. I think we'll have an event here in the Capitol where you can come and do a Q&A and see some pictures of where we're going. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, worldwide, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a moment.
Hey, we have a new week.
On the pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we're going to have much more. And 40 years, it's hard to believe Krista McAuliffe's legacy is still alive and vibrant. That's our poll question up on next. Do you think Krista McAuliffe's legacy as the first teacher in space is still vibrant? I think it is. It's she and I knew her husband. I don't know if he's retired now as a federal judge, Stephen McAuliffe, and just a great family. But what a story out of Concord, J-Dog. And, of course, near and dear to you growing up, right, J-Dog? It's like your whole adult life, pretty much. You're in and around the Krista McAuliffe, whether it's now the legacy living on in Concord, right?
I was 2 going on 3 when that had happened. So, yes, absolutely. Because, again, she was Concord High teacher. I became a Concord High student and alum, class of 01. So, yes. And also there were certain teachers in the faculty that were my teachers, and some weren't, that were with Krista McAuliffe in the student body back in the day.
So you can pretty much really just grew up in the school around where she's from in terms of helping to shape you, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it was pretty much a real front and center thing in your life right here in Concord. Yep. All right. We're going to have more on some of the other news talk as we get going, and a lot of debate happening and a lot of other stuff. Mother Nature's still on the news on this Wednesday. We'll see if they're talking about a storm to the back half of the weekend, believe it or not. But people are still digging out. Andrew with Colette Travel in our studios, and I believe it's the departure date is October 25th.
24th.
24th.
You get there on the 25th.
Okay. So we're doing a trip again with Colette, our second, and it's I want to talk about the merits of doing a trip like this, because a lot of people on their bucket list, including me, has been Scotland, Wales. My late dad, that was one thing he always talked about doing, and you don't wait, because we were just talking during the break. You never know. And it's a bucket list opportunity, but sometimes people, with today, everything on this wicked smartphone, you can look up guides, you can look up trip and try and do it all yourself. But what I tell people about Colette, and the people that I just got a letter yesterday from a great lady, I'm sorry, I just want to give credit, in Rochester, went out west on our cowboy trip, Lapine family. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. What they loved is how comfortable and less stressful going with a Colette trip is, because your team is professional. This is what they do. They work with people. They limit the size of the group. But when you go to another place, even that vehicle you get into, if you're alone and you're hiring and waving, or basically what we would call like an Uber type situation, you don't know who you're going to get. Then the guide, the local guide, what restaurant to try. Oh, geez, I'm in London. What's a good place to go to if I want a casual pint and something to eat? Or you're in Scotland. And this is what you excel at.
Yeah, and I think we really curate these tours with common travelers in mind that want to go to a destination and, of course, learn about the history and experience the culture, but want a balanced approach. So we're going to go around and see a lot of the must-sees and highlights with one another. We're going to do some off-the-beaten-path type of experiences, but then we are also going to give you that freedom and that free time when you're in Edinburgh and London to go off and decide if you're doing a museum or eating or shopping. But yeah, you do have that tour manager to fall on. And one thing that's unique with us is we use tour managers that are from the destinations that we're trying.
Right.
So they know it like the back of their hand. And like you just said, they've got the tips, the tricks, the do's, the don'ts, and you really get to maximize every moment rather than run around aimlessly.
Well, pragmatic me, use me for an example. So say you're in Scotland and you're trying to do this trip alone without going with us, and you have X number limited nights, and say it's a big anniversary. So it's a bucket list trip. You're in Scotland this fall, and you're like, I don't want to blow one of the nights and go to a bad place. So if you have that local guide who's from there, just to have someone say, it's happened once to me in New Orleans when I was in the TV business. We had a news director convention there. We were going to go to one of the more touristy places. And I remember our local guide says, no, go to this place on the side street. It's local. It's great. So if you're in Scotland and you're going to have 3 or 4 nights or 2 or 3 nights, and you're with Colette and your guide says, look, here's where you want to go for, if you want a good lunch place, try this for dinner. Here's a couple of options. It limits your slippage of sort of, not, I guess you couldn't really make a mistake, but not getting as good of a great experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the knowledge and the narrative that you get over the course of our 10 days with one another is really exceptional, because a lot of people might go over there and rent a car and book some day trips, but every time you're hopping on a day trip, you're with someone new, and oftentimes you get the same
Right.
spiel. But with being with the same representative for 10 days, you get to know one
Yeah,
another.
it's like a
and,
buddy. And,
They become your best friend.
quick
and I mean,
questions like, yeah.
yeah, and quick questions, and
What were you
you
gonna
can
say
kind
there?
of control the narrative. I was going to say, so many of our tour managers actually have Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And like once you travel
They
with
become
them, you're part of
fans.
the club.
Yeah, they're
and
like,
you got
"Hey,
fans. Exactly.
I want to do another trip next year." And there's something we haven't mentioned because I want to tell people how they can go and learn more. Speak to one of your reps easily. Just say, Jack, the Great Britain Landscapes Tour, the Pulse, and just talk and get some questions answered. So I want you to slowly, in a minute, give a phone number or two, a website. Now, of course, the Pulse of NH is one way. The Pulse of NH, you're going to see the British Landscapes Tour. All the information about Coette's there. And I stressed earlier, 100 years in business or more in Rhode Island, family owned and operated. This is a controlled trip, meaning limited. It is in the fall, but it is filling up. So we wanted to take a moment. Andrew was in Concord this morning. But the other perk we haven't mentioned that is really good is, especially in England, when you're with me and the last name of Heath, they're going to say, were you related to Ed Heath, the Prime Minister? Heath. It's a big English name, I don't know if you knew that. I'm just
did
kidding.
not,
I'm
no.
kidding. Heath is a very big English name. So we're going to be right at home. Okay, so I'm out there listening to Jack right now. I'm interested. What can I do to learn more?
Yeah, a couple of places. So Jack just mentioned, go to thepulseofnh.com. You'll see a link that's there. You can read all about the itinerary, travel tips, pricing. Great place to start. On that link, you'll also see a phone number listed for Colette. And that phone number that you're going to want to call is 800-581-8942. You can mention Jack's name. I'm going to read that again in just a moment so you can get a pen and paper. So that number, 800-581-8942. You can reference the group number, which is 138-6849. Again, 138-6849. You can mention Jackie's name and we'll pull it up. And our team's there to answer your questions. So it doesn't have to be just to sign up. If you just need to learn more and kind of understand what it's all about, that's what we're here for. But it's really a nice, inclusive package where we're going to meet in a central location here in central New Hampshire, go down to Logan Airport, flights included, transportation, full tour for 10 days, and some meals along the way. And you'll be able to go over just knowing that all the details are covered.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Andrew. Thank you so much for coming in. Enjoy the snowy, cold stuff here. But as I say, even people in Florida, so you're not missing much right now. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse Vintage. Come back. We'll update you on some Medicare information. Aaron Archambault on deck. A little bit later on, Doug Tengden talking about some slippage in the value of the dollar. I'm sure gold and silver went up. Federal Reserve meeting as we speak. Interest rates expected to stay unchanged. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of NH. Jack, Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back in a moment.
News, information.
On the pulse of New Hampshire.
I meant to ask you, J-Dog, what's the biggest memory you have of Christy McAuliffe?
Let's see. Well, again, I was 2 going on 3 when it happened. And I do remember the news reports briefly when it happened. So, I mean, and as I grew older and heard about her legacy, that she was a teacher at Concord High School, and I would be, well, play my cards right and not drop out of school, go to Concord High School.
But did she have some impact on you, even subconsciously, as a teacher?
I mean, she wasn't, I get there were a couple of teachers that were part of that faculty back in the day,
Right.
that became my teachers. So yes, and preserving the memory and keeping her alive in that regard, yes.
Yeah,
So.
and of course, 40 years, hard to believe. The Challenger disaster, I think it was 73 seconds. And the thing people forget is it just was it was picture perfect takeoff in 73 seconds. I guess it was the rings, because of the cold temperatures and the takeoff. They had these rings on one of the boosters and caused the explosion. All right, we're going to switch gears, but this is a very important subject. Medicare Trust.
Decker first.
Oh, we have John Decker first. I'm sorry, we're going to get to Aaron on Medicare. John Decker, our own White House correspondent. So much going on in the last day or two, John. I don't know where to begin, so I'm going to let you. Please tell me what your key focus. I know you've been traveling with the president, Air Force One. You've been covering this up close and personal. So many moving parts. John Decker, our own White House correspondent. I guess there's a lot of focus still in and around Minneapolis, up to the state of Maine, right. Believe it or not. Even Senator Collins, a Republican, running again, talking about maybe halting the ICE presence in Maine after they've actually 200 people successfully apprehended. But John, what's front and center this morning? There's so much to keep track of. Good morning.
Well, there is a lot to keep track of. The president, as you know, has made some personnel moves as it relates to Minnesota, and 2 people who have been speaking out have been quite visible for the administration are no longer going to be visible. We're talking about Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, Gregory Bavino from the Border Patrol. Tom Homan will now be the point person on the ground in Minneapolis. And the president believes that will calm things down. He is a professional. The president trusts him. And Mr. Homan met yesterday with both the governor and the mayor of Minneapolis in an effort to calm things down in that state.
What I love about him is no nonsense. And goes back to, I think, the Obama administration, but he's no nonsense. Real quickly, John, the Kristi Noem factor. We had Chris Pappas on the show yesterday, Congressman, Democrat, yes, but he's running for the Senate here. And I asked him, should she be replaced? He said, absolutely, yes, not even a question. But my question is, the president seems to have made some changes, and maybe like it's the National Hockey League for a moment, benching Kristi Noem a little bit, but not kicking her off the team. Is that fair or not? What's the sense in the White House?
No, that's fair. I think that's fair. She's in the penalty box, if you want to use the hockey analogy. Look, I think a lot of it depends how the narrative shapes up, how the dynamics shape up going forward in Minneapolis. If things calm down, then she's good. And remember, she only plays to an audience of 1. As long as the president is satisfied with her, that's all that matters. There are 2 Republican senators who are calling for her to step down, but that's it. She will testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee in a few weeks, and we'll see how that hearing goes for her. But right now, she is safe. Tomorrow, there's a cabinet meeting, by the way, Jack. And as you know, the president goes around the room, has each of his cabinet secretaries talk about what's happening at their department or agency. It will just be interesting to see the dynamic when Kristi Noem speaks tomorrow. I'll be in the room, actually. I'm going to be in the pool tomorrow in the cabinet room. And I'll let you know, of course.
Tell me if Secretary Rubio is staring across the table. Hey, real quickly, John, one thing I said to someone the other day on the Kristi Noem story, I go, well, all these secretaries and cabinet members serve at the discretion of the president. They've already signed a letter. They've already signed a letter of their resignation before day 1. And they looked at me and they go, they did? How do you know that? And I go, I can't tell you. All right, John, thank you.
Right. Thank you.
That's a true story, by the way. They've already signed their resignation. Even if they're in there for the 2 or 4 years, they've already signed it. President have to just say, thank you. I got your letter. You're gone. But we'll see where it goes. All right. I was talking about Medicare Trust. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about this, which is perfect because Aaron Archambault, one of our great partners and sponsors, he's an attorney and he's got a great firm. He's going to tell you all about his law firm and New Hampshire estate law. But he joins us to talk a little bit more about Medicare Trust because he's gotten a lot of questions from clients recently on these, the breakdown of Medicaid and Medicaid Trust, Medicare. I don't know much about this, but good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, Jack. How are we doing this morning?
Good. I know you're busy out there this morning, so I want you to run through a little bit about before even setting up a trust, understanding the limits you're trying to meet, but also I don't understand a lot about this. So can you kind of run through what common Medicaid trusts are in New Hampshire and things like this? Because I really don't know much about this and I probably should.
Yeah, so Medicaid trusts are a method of protecting your assets while you might need to go on Medicaid for care. And need to go to a nursing home, for example, but you don't have the funds to privately pay, or your funds are limited and you want to protect the limited funds you have and you want them to go to your loved ones. So setting up a Medicaid trust, and this is a pre-planning thing, not a, hey, wait, we need to do this now, because there is a 5-year look-back period. But it allows you to put assets into the trust to protect them from being involved in your Medicaid eligibility for nursing home care or, for care when you may need it down the road.
Which can be expensive. Aaron, but I want to go back to the basics as a layman on this because I'm really kind of in the, you're informing me, therefore our listeners. So I have explained on my show before the difference between Medicaid and Medicare because there is quite a difference. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. You know this stuff like the back of your hand, Aaron, and you help so many clients in this area, and you got a great app I want to talk about on the website. But Medicaid, my understanding is, public support for those on an income need who need, some supplemental support for healthcare. Medicare really has to do with an age retirement thing where you would go off like a private Anthem plan or an employer plan and sign up for Medicare, usually at 65 and older. Am I just 20,000 feet roughly right on that or not?
You are 100% correct. So Medicare is basically a requirement for your health care after you turn 65. Medicaid is financial assistance for those who can't afford, their medical treatment, and that could be any age. So that's anywhere from children all the way up through, the end of your life.
Well, hold on. I want to come back to one thing you said because I don't know if this is right or wrong, and maybe I'm wrong. If because people are working longer, cost of living is high, and you look at people in Washington and the Senate, no offense, or the White House, they're closer to 80 than 60. When you just said Medicare, my understanding is when you turn 65, you'll start hearing from the Social Security Administration on your retirement benefits and Medicare. They usually communicate jointly to you. And say your full retirement, a lot of the baby boomers in the audience is, if you were born in 1960, might be 67. When you can start drawing Social Security. But Medicare is 65 years old, as you said. But if you're still working full-time and you have a private plan, I've been told you don't have to sign up for Medicare until you're ready to do that. Is that right or wrong?
So you don't have to sign up for Medicare at that point. But if you want medical coverage, private medical coverage, or you're retiring, so you can still stay on, let me rephrase this. If you're not retiring, you're 66 years old, you're working full time. You're not going to this is why you should go to Aaron and ask these questions. I should go meet with him. You're not going to even take Social Security yet. You can, but you might want to wait to your full retirement age because you'll not get as much. So that's what I've been told. So you're working full time. You're 66 years old. You're working full time. You're going to put off Social Security till you're 67 or 70, but you're getting really good health insurance through your full time job. I'm being told you don't need Medicare yet. Well, so that's not entirely true. You actually don't need all of Medicare. So there's multiple parts of Medicare, Medicare Part A, Part B, and you still should be signing up for Part A, which is free healthcare. That's the free healthcare portion that Medicare provides. And most employers and most health insurance plans will require you to sign up at age 65 in order to get other coverage beyond Part A.
Interesting. I didn't know that. All right. What do we have going on in terms of Medicaid and these trusts? What do we need to know?
So-
Because I don't understand
Yeah.
how you can set aside something in a trust on Medicaid.
So if you have assets, so in New Hampshire, it's actually more than $2,500 in assets, then you may not qualify for Medicaid support in the event that you need to go into a long-term care facility or a nursing home because of the fact that you have assets. And if you have assets, they will count those assets against your eligibility.
Interesting. So what do you recommend on all this? Because you just saw the questions I had and I wasn't all correct. And I do this every morning, at least a news talk show. So call you, make an appointment, go to your app. You can on the app and tell us the site in the app again. You can ask questions because, you know, again, I'm looking at, you sent me a summary before the show, eligibility and estate recovery rules. But before that, common Medicaid trust in New Hampshire. I didn't even know there was such a thing, Aaron. I had no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And most people don't. And that's why we're here, right? We have the information. We're happy to share the information. So we offer complimentary consultations. So you can talk to us and we can answer questions and we can provide you with the information. And then we can help you get those things set up through our app, the aegislegacy.app. So that's www.aegislegacy.app. Or you can go to estateplansnh.com as well and get to the app through there and set up an appointment. We'll talk to you, answer any questions. That's why we're here.
Well, I may be becoming a client because you awesome stuff, Aaron. I'm glad you're back on. We need to do more of this. Let's continue. Let's do in a week or two. Can we do the same subject again? Because I think we should maybe when you're in here, kind of walk through this one again. Because I didn't even know that you could even set up a Medicaid trust. I had no idea, or make it part of your trust. I had no idea. And when you think about people getting older, that care, all of a sudden, if your health changes, becomes a monthly financial worry.
Yeah, and certainly, you know, the cost of a nursing home or long-term care facility can be, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a month.
Yep.
So need to be able to plan for that.
Great stuff. The website one more time, Aaron.
Estateplansnh.com.
Estate plans, plural, nh.com. And that's Aaron Archambault. Thank you, Aaron. Great stuff.
Thank you, Jack.
All right. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of NH. Value of the dollar came up yesterday. Markets in it like it. We'll see what Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors, has to say next.
107.7
about that. Talking with Aaron Archambault after the break. All right. So yesterday, interesting news about the value of the dollar. And President Trump was asked about it, saying he wasn't that concerned. And there's a lot of people have been worried about this, and no one, by the way. This is the hypocrisy of Congress. I'm sorry. Here they are once again talking about a possible government shutdown. And here we go once again. This one over Homeland Security funding. Last one over the Affordable Care Act and the tax subsidies. No one's talking about our debt and how big it is. And this does impact things like your Social Security benefits in a few years if Social Security is not flush and solvent. But what about the value of the dollar? And I think we have Doug Tengden, worldmarketadvisors.com, checking in, or he's going to check in talking about that. But the value of the dollar yesterday was an issue. And I'm not sure, we're not sure, I mean, really, I'm not sure, how this is going to continue. The president seemed to say he wasn't concerned about it. And no one in Congress, have you ever noticed, regardless of what party's in power, what party's in the White House, no one talks about our debt. I don't check it all the time. The latest U.S. debt. And it's hard to get a number, but I don't know if you know this, we're getting upwards of $38.49 trillion. $38.49 trillion with a T. And you don't know this stuff. And this is why the national media, and they dumb this stuff down and everyone just goes about. But do you know what that equates for every person in America? Our debt. Does anyone out there have an idea? A rough idea? Like within 100 miles idea? How about $112,668 for every person in America? The percentage of that debt. Every person, by the way. Not just taxpayers. $38.4 trillion. And now there's a structural mismatch or, out of sync thing between federal spending and revenue. And some people say, oh, don't worry about the debt. As long as the economy's growing, we're okay. But again, do you ever notice we can't live our lives like this? You can't just keep running up your credit card to 40, 50, 60,000 bucks and keep going and thinking, I don't have to worry about it. Don't have to worry about it. $38.49 trillion is the U.S. debt. Now, the U.S. dollar yesterday took a hit. And I don't know where markets are this morning, but when you look at what really matters, and this is the stuff, you look at someone like a Chuck Schumer, talk about politician. He is just all over, like he was the Affordable Care Act, COVID era tax subsidies, the same subsidies they voted to have sunset. Got to continue those, or you Republicans are going to take away health coverage from so many people. 70 or 80,000 people in New Hampshire on the exchange. And now he's all over the ICE stuff and Homeland Security. But you ever see these politicians talk to you about, ICE stuff and Homeland Security? Do you ever hear them talk about the debt? When's the last time you heard anyone in Washington, including the president sometimes, talk about the debt? Either party. Tell me. When's the last time you heard anyone talk about the debt as a problem for all of us? $112,000 more each one of us now. This is the debt, $38.49 trillion. When's the last time anyone in Washington? And the reason why they don't talk about is you won't get elected. And in Washington and Congress, it's all about getting elected and reelected and staying in power like Chuck Schumer. It just is. It's just a reality. Stay in there. That's your barometer of success. But no one talks about the debt. And how about Social Security? We just had Aaron Archambault on talking about things like Medicare, Medicaid, your health insurance. What about Social Security? Probably 80% of the people out there retired rely in some degree on that Social Security check, whether you're an individual or a couple, whether it's $2 or $3 grand or $4 grand a month. That Social Security check is very important to you surviving and paying a mortgage or rent check if you have one, or groceries. It's very important. And why isn't any congressman Why isn't anyone in Washington currently telling you, including New Hampshire members of Congress, that if we don't deal with this debt in 4 or 5 short years, they're not telling you, but you may be getting 10, 20% less of your Social Security benefit because it's just not enough. It's not solvent. Yeah, no one's telling you. No one's telling me. And if you say things like, we need to raise the retirement age by 2 or 3 or 4 years, you know what, people, I'm sorry, they tend to be Democrats. You know what they're going to say if you propose a pragmatic idea like that? My opponent wants to take away your Social Security. And they'll cut commercials on it. And they'll yell and scream, my opponent wants to take away your Social Security. No, I want to save it by looking at how old people are and how long they're living, because the old system's antiquated. Oh no, they want to take away your Social Security. Or how about offering to wealthy Americans or wealthier that don't need that 2 or 3 or 4 grand a month, like 80% of you do, or us, if you're on Social Security and retired or still working? How about offering to some people you can opt out of getting your Social Security benefit that you've paid into? Because unlike all these other entitlements, by the way, Social Security you paid into. Do you know we're robbing Peter to pay Paul right now? J-Dog, I don't know if you know this, J-Dog, every other week when you get paid here, J-Dog, for the great work you do, you're paying into your own Social Security right now. And no one's telling you if it's going to be there, J-Dog. That you're paying into that right now. It automatically comes out, J-Dog. And no one's telling you as a younger person if it's going to be there. But how about offering to someone who's older, who doesn't need it, to keep more money in the system? Hey, you can opt out when you're 67 if you don't want your Social Security. Click here. And you know what? Have the money go stay in and give them a tax benefit on capital gains. Why not? But again, they want to take away your Social Security. When we come up, we're talking about affordable housing with our friends from Procon. They are doing great stuff in Somersworth and beyond. Phase 2. We'll learn about that next.